Hello, everyone. Welcome back from the break. Hope you had a chance to grab some coffee and get settled in. Have a really unique opportunity here at this point in today's Customer Experience Summer Partner Summit to sit down with some of our best partners. I would challenge you to find a better, more deeply experienced bench of folks to talk about this particular subject anywhere, nationally, the globe, anywhere. I've had the pleasure of really working with these subject matter experts, and they are going to be answering some questions for us in a panel style format. We're lucky to have Eric Zion, who's the CEO and founder of Zion & Zion, one of our most trusted service and implementation partners. We also are joined by Michael Davis, the SVP of Technology and Data Strategy from Shift Paradigm. Michael, super glad you're here. And Ian Daly, the VP of Product Marketing from our technology partner, Invoca. So with these three gentlemen, we have a few questions we'd like to get their perspective on today. And we are going to dive deeper into understanding market challenges, some of the changes in consumer expectations, and opportunities to strengthen connection within the customer journey. And so we are lucky to speak with these folks. They work with some of the largest brands in the world, such as the LA Clippers, Phoenix Suns, Line Networks, ISG, and IBM, just to name a few. And so we're super lucky to have you all. Thanks, all of you, for joining. So in the interest of time, I'd love to just dive into it. So panelists, consumer expectations are at an all-time high, when it comes to their buying experience, from an online window shopping all the way to a checkout cart. So this means the onus is on marketing and data teams to deliver relevant content. What challenges are you seeing with your customers face when you work with the clients that you serve in creating connection with their target audiences? And Eric, why don't we go ahead and start with you on this question? What's your feedback?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me today. So there's really two keys here. So Justin, mentioned relevancy, but relevancy is really only the start. So the real challenge is going beyond relevancy. And what I mean by that is, relevancy is it's an abandoned cart email or it's a related product recommendation. And we find with our clients, yes, that's important to achieve operational parity with your competitors who are also going to do related product recommendations and abandoned cart emails, et cetera. But it's not enough to strategically differentiate an organization. Yeah. So when we work with clients, that can be the starting point, but bringing frameworks to bear that we've developed with our US and global clients allow us to pursue that really elusive linkage between CDP implementation and that world-class move the needle content delivery and experiences.
Yeah, no, perfect. Well said. Ian, would love your feedback.
Yeah, I think as it comes to delivering relevant content, I think we kind of need to think about relevancy and everything that Eric just said, but it also really, comes down to a deep understanding of our customers. And in my role in B2B, we think so much about buyer personas and really understanding those buyers at a deep level, essentially what makes them tick and what their goals are and all that. Because obviously, if we don't understand our customers, we can't deliver content that's going to deeply resonate. And I think that's where a lot of first-party data comes in, to be able to tap into all the data sources that you have to be able to understand your consumers at a level that maybe your competitors can't. And so we see, at Invoca, we see a lot of brands looking inward and thinking more about new sources of first-party data and where they can tap into that beyond what they used to be able to tap into. So I think number one the first step is really understanding your customers. I think the number two thing is really understanding your customers in terms of what's happening with them in the here and now. So that could be in a specific journey, but that could also mean how are they reacting to macro trends like the effect of inflation, or trends about how they're reacting to new changes in content and the experience that you're providing. At Invoca, we essentially help our brand customers connect marketing with everything that's going on in the contact center, or anything that's happening over the phone. And so a lot of the times that means attributing conversions and that sort of thing. But I think our customers also look at all the insight that they can give and they can get from those channels, because it's really customers telling you in their own words what they're seeking. And it's just an untapped source of data to really deliver experiences and content that they'll relate to.
No, that's perfect. And so the next question I'll just pose, and Michael, I'll start with you on this next one. And we've heard a lot about managing, optimizing data to connect and improve the experience. And now we'd love to talk about maybe some specific examples that you've seen. So how have your services team, Michael, worked with Telium's customer data platform to drive, value for your customers?
Yeah, I think it starts with recognizing that technology is an ecosystem, and recognizing that if you want to manage data and you want to drive relevant experiences and you want to create personalization, you really have to think about, obviously the strategic elements that drive some of that decision making. But when you approach technology, it's not just one given technology that's going to solve that problem, right? You've got to think about, how do I manage data, and how do I aggregate data in a way that I can perform advanced analytics? How do I create visibility to what's happening? How do I start being able to leverage tools like a CDP in order to be able to stitch data and then deliver that data to where it's going to go? All of those pieces are necessary. It's not just one piece of technology. And so when you think about how kind of we approach, some of these challenges to clients, it really starts with, where is your data now? How do we get it into a place that we can use it? How do we understand it? How do we build audiences from that data that are data driven, that progressively go from, call it behavior-based kind of profiling all the way into the attribute-based profiling, which tends to be a little bit of a reverse approach there. But really kind of taking that information and being able to build experiences and design experiences based on the audience data that we're gathering and tracking and visualizing, and then being able to activate that in real time. And that's where you can starting to think about, what is that ideal experience for, across a upsell situation where you've got 2-3 different brands, operating in parallel. How do we ensure that we're serving up the right types of experiences for people in brand 1 so that they can kind of take advantage of products in brand 2 and 3? And that's no different than anything you'd want if you had just a singular product. But it starts with recognizing that technology as a whole has to be aligned, and that all of it has to be working together. And then you can ultimately get to the type of experience that you're looking to drive.
Well said. Thank you, Michael. Eric, over to you. Let's just swing around the horn. Would love to hear any specific examples of how you're working with your clients with Telium to drive value.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would say is, I will give you a couple of specific examples. But the start of finding how to drive that value, we always look at a prioritization exercise, right? A lot of times people will want to boil the ocean. There's so much you can do with a product like Telium. Figuring out where you're going to get that mouse bang for the buck in an accelerated time frame, whether that's politically for quick wins or whether that is, for financial reasons. Whatever. So a great example is, we've been working with the Phoenix Suns, do a lot of work in sports, for several years. And probably the most impactful thing was really the first thing that we worked on, which was to integrate Telium in a deeply meaningful way with their digital media, including a lot of data visualization work that went on there. So we brought our team together, our data science people, our data viz people, our CDP people, our digital media people, together with people on the Sun side. And we were actually able to achieve 25% improvements in return on ad spend. And that may not sound like a lot. I mean, it really is, right? For a mature organization to all of a sudden, near overnight, get 25% improvements there. And when you're talking about hundreds, thousands, millions in media spend, and you're talking about now hundreds, thousands in improvements that gets reinvested, let's just call it a 10-to-1 ROAS. So that extra money is now yielding millions in additional revenue. So that's one great example. Another, I'm going to build on something Emily Wilson from Meta said. So, and I'm sure you're going to hear all day long, Cappy, 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 and absolutely, I'm going to say it again. Cappy, do it. We do it with almost every client that we have. But there are, in addition to the fact that we have seen in multiple client instances, 50% improvements in reported Facebook conversions. Now, I know Emily talked about small amounts, and maybe you'll see it. I'm telling you all of our data, 50% improvements. That's the order of magnitude. Now, you may say, yes, we optimize media spend when we get that better conversion data. Absolutely. Two other really important things we're seeing with respect to that data. One, if Facebook and other social platforms, right, that need the conversion API have only 2/3 the data to operate on, guess what? It takes them massively longer for their machine learning algorithms to optimize because they're seeing less data to act on. So you are wasting spend, not just because you think your social is underperforming because you don't see the conversions, but you're wasting spend having Facebook take longer than it needs to optimize. Second, let's say you're doing creative testing in Facebook. So another client example. When you are missing 1/3 of the conversion data, those creative tests take massively longer to run. So your time to value and your spending and the sample sizes you need on those creative tests, they are way, way up there. So these are tangible, near-term, realized value in weeks, not months, not years type of things.
No, well said, Eric. Ian, over to you. We've heard some big numbers from our services agencies of low-hanging fruit to pick, and they've been able to help drive that for their clients at Shift Paradigm and at Zion and Zion. From your side, on the technology side, what type of use cases are you helping drive with Telium? What are you seeing? We'd love you to comment on the use cases that you're helping with.
Absolutely. And Eric, I don't think you could have teed me up better, honestly, with the two concepts about quick wins and missing data. Like what are you missing that you should be leveraging? And so I'll give you a first example here around a company called Infinity Sales Group, or ISG. So what ISG is a performance marketing and sales company that operates on behalf of large businesses like AT&T and Dish and Frontier, so a lot of telcos and others, where they spend their own money, in budgets driving ads, but also operating their own call centers. So actually closing that new customer acquisition on behalf of those brands. And so they wanted those two things that you just talked about, Eric, those quick wins and the get that missing data. Because of course, if they're converting people digitally, that's one thing. But as soon as folks call in, because buying telecom for the first time with bundling and promotions and all that sort of stuff, most people are entering into a 6, 7, 8 year long commitment, and they often want to speak to a human being in that. And so in order to give them those quick wins and get them that missing data, Invoca with Telium is able to connect the conversions that are happening over the phone when people are signing up for these new services and attribute those to those clicks that essentially drove them. And so if you think about any brand that in the world that is driving, say, 30, 40, 50% of their conversions through an inbound phone channel, if you're not looking at this, then you're missing a good part of the picture, and you're sort of tying your arm, one arm behind your back in terms of doing effective marketing. And so by pumping this data through Telium into platforms like Google Ads and Criteo, and then not only doing that, but taking that information and enhancing those customer profiles within Telium with the caller ID information. So you can do audience building to understand if somebody converted, let's add them to a suppression audience and stop targeting. If somebody showed a very high level of intent, either digitally or they said certain things over the phone but did not convert, let's retarget them and add those folks to those tactics. So that is the low-hanging fruit, is really understanding people in those situations. I'll give you one more example here because I think it illustrates where you can go from there, which is thinking for marketers, I think a little bit outside the box, which is with a company, joint Invoca and Telium company that operates very large health systems, where they are thinking a lot about patient experience and how do I not just improve my marketing effectiveness, but how do I improve those experiences by delivering more empathy in every touch point? And so what they're doing is, with the combination of Invoca and Telium, is helping the agents that answer the phone with context about the state of mind and the intent of that consumer in that moment by what we were able to gather digitally. So this is pretty far out of the box in terms of what marketers typically think about, but the impacts are tremendous. To be able to know that somebody's searching for hip replacement, they're reading your site, and you can connect them immediately to an agent who can anticipate their needs, handle that call more quickly and efficiently, because ultimately I think that's what patients are looking for. And you can see how that extends beyond healthcare into many, many, many different systems and verticals.
Well said. No, that's perfect. And again, speaking of the theme of queuing each other up well, I'm going to go around with one more formal question, and then we'll go to the audience. But Ian, we're just going to pick right back up with you, and then we'll go Michael and Eric for this last one. From a forward-looking perspective, would love to get your opinion on this next generation of tech stacks that you're seeing in the marketplace, for this next generation of customer experience that we're looking to drive. And you can go anywhere you like with this, from the metaverse to customer service, through social channels, through omni-channel customer experience. I'm just going to absolutely open it up where you'd like it to go. But in this theme of forward-looking tech stacks, what are you seeing in the marketplace? Where do you think it will go? Ian, let's start with you.
Well, I'm not exactly much of a futurist, so I'll give you a very specific answer. It actually builds on what Michael said a bit earlier, which is, I think it was Michael, which is really having the right people in the right places with the right data to affect changes in customer experience. So what we deal with, I've mentioned the phone channel a lot, is because that's our bread and butter and what we actually help marketers achieve. Our customers, their consumers are what we consider having a multi-channel experiences, right? They're interacting digitally, they're picking up the phone, they're having a conversation, they're showing up at a car dealership or showing up in store. So it's what we would consider that a multi-channel experience. For the brand, for those consumers, they don't really see it that way. They just see it as, I'm doing business with a brand, right? I'm doing business with Verizon, or I'm doing business with this car dealership or Toyota or what have you. I'm experiencing this brand in this way, and I don't really care whether it happened digitally or on the phone. I want it all to be seamless. That's my expectation. What we've done as businesses is set up teams and silos and walls of data and other things like that. So I don't think when we look from a customer experience standpoint, I think we have a lot of the technology at our disposal today. I honestly think that with the power of Telium and all the things that it can do, combined with all the other systems that you integrate with, including Invoca, it's really about thinking about breaking down those barriers, and how do we share the data? How do we combine teams? How do we align teams to think about that broader customer experience? Because so many teams own that. And I think with that, we can meet customers at the expectation that they have, which is plainly to have a nice, efficient experience with the brand. I think that's all that they're primarily looking for, because you can design the most efficient, beautiful digital experience, but as soon as somebody crosses channels and you end up on the phone and you have a rude agent or an agent that has no idea what you're asking about, they're going to leave you and you've lost that customer forever. So I think of it more from the internal perspective, honestly.
Well said. I think we all have those horror stories with customers, and it puts customers in the hole, right? And media or companies, I mean, right away, they have a deficit of trust with the customer that then the onus is on them to earn it back. Why not start from, at minimum, a neutral and at best a positive experience? I mean,
I'll just say 76% of consumers will stop doing business with a brand on one bad experience. So, wow. I mean, that's it. Like, one bad experience is all it takes, especially if it's an impactful experience, like interacting with a real human being.
Yeah, no, well said. Michael, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the explosion of applications and what's happening, right? Like, you've gone from, when I first started consulting, there was like 3,300 applications in the martech space. Now, 10,000 is easily the number at this point. And I think the way that we're seeing things move is this: the struggle is very real for managing these applications and trying to connect them together. I think to Ian's point, like, you're trying to break down these silos, and a lot of these applications have an opinionated architecture, which basically just means like it's not necessarily designed to connect together real well. And so some of the evolution that we're seeing, and this is something that's taken place in the IT side of the business for such a long time, right? They're focused on MDM and data management and all of this other stuff. And our revenue teams have yet to really adopt a mentality of kind of data management as a foundation of driving revenue. And I think as you start to progress down this path and people are really trying to solve data siloing and really trying to solve applications, and they're going to start, I think, gravitating away from having every piece of technology kind of integrated together, but rather manage data underneath all of that applications and create, we'll call it like your production ready data sets that are enabling each one of those pieces of technology to be successful, right? Because they all have different use cases and they can be very good at what it is that they're designed to do. But the core data set that allows those pieces of technology to be successful has to be manicured. It has to be managed. It has to be, considered in terms of how data changes in one technology, how that affects the rest of the ecosystem, how valid is the data that you create. All of those things are really things that you have to kind of think through as you're starting to establish an entire ecosystem of technology that's supposed to work together to create one experience. And so starting for revenue-focused individuals, sales, marketing, customer success, for them to start moving in that direction, it's going to require some more of the adoption of what IT has traditionally done in the MDM side. We have a little bit more master data management. You have a little bit more thought process around how to capture data, how to manage it, how to run analytics with it, how to manicure that data and deploy it to where it needs to go. And so CDPs are part of that, cloud data sets are part of that, analytics are part of that, the different tools that you use to create all these experiences. So if you want all that to work, you're going to see a lot of more of this kind of underlayment of data management underneath all these applications. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, well said. I mean, just to recap what you said in terms of there's a lot going on under the surface to power these customer experiences. There's a massive amount, to use the duck analogy, right? Paddling like hell underwater. Smooth is the goal on the top of the water, what's in view, but the goal is to keep all those wires and cords and connections de-siloed to result in the duck moving forward. I mean, that's very hard, and that's why we're so grateful to have experts such as you at Shift Paradigm and to help drive that. But Eric, why don't you add your thoughts to that in terms of what?
Sure. So building honestly on what both Ian and Michael said, there are a lot of tools out there. Are there enough tools? Probably. Do tools deliver a lot of value? Yes. Do you need a CDP at the core of your organization and a modern organization? Absolutely. Is Telium a great one? Yes. Fantastic. Okay. Here's the problem. Organizations need to strategically differentiate themselves, not copy, not send the same abandonment emails, not do the same product recommendation type algorithms, et cetera. There's no strategic differentiation there. All you're doing is aligning with what competitors can do.
Yeah.
Now, when a lot of martech tools come onto the scene, are they powerful? Do they enable in a lot? And can you get ahead of your competitor by deploying one? You can. But that alone is not a sustainable competitive advantage because your competitor can also deploy the tool too. And now it becomes a war of who's quicker. So my point being, organizations should balance evaluating martech tools, what's possible, what's capable, what could I use? But simultaneously, they need to think in terms of independent of what tools are available, innovating the CX. And the more they can think independent of the tools, the more likely they are to come up with opportunities to strategically differentiate and now bend the tools to their will, as opposed to bend their organization to the tool, which then yields a Me Too organization of the same 6 companies that deployed the same suite of tools.
Yeah, no, incredibly right. Earlier, we had David Robb from the CDP Institute speaking to this particular audience, and he was talking about building, a tripod between the technology, but also people and process. And people underscale those other two items, thinking that actually what technology runs the danger of doing in your organization is exactly what you said, Eric, having people think too in the box of the limitations on one particular piece of technology. I can't go further than this because my software doesn't allow it, rather than thinking holistically about, hey, the end goal is to lower this metric or to improve customer sat scores or whatever the end goal is that helps power that, to get out of the thinking that only technology can solve this problem and that you're limited by siloing an organization within the capabilities of one piece of software. Well, perfect. Is there anything that you would have kind of the audience know? We have about 5 minutes. Would love to give each of you a minute to kind of talk about what's the best way to get in touch with your organization, the use cases that you help solve, how you want people to get in touch with you, and why they should. So really brief, 1 minute or less. If you could tell people how to get in touch and what they should get in touch about, that'd be great. Ian, let's start with you.
I think we covered a lot like that, like I talked about in terms of if you are a business that is doing a decent amount of your revenue over the inbound phone channel, or if you see inbound calls as sort of in the critical path of customer acquisition, then you should really talk to us, because if you're not being able to connect what's happening with either what's happening at a provider, at a dealership, at a local office, or in a centralized contact center into all of the marketing activities that you're using to drive those calls, then you're just like we talked about before, you're just missing a huge piece of the pie, and you're essentially operating on assumptions. And I think a lot of folks don't know that the capability is to have that granular attribution. What you would expect from digital, you can get from those phone calls in terms of conversion attribution. And then there's this whole richer world of how you can leverage conversation analytics and the insights that you can glean from those customer conversations to really power your experiences. So best way to contact us, since we're here and we're all friends, you can email me directly. You can get me at first initial last name at invoca.com. If you're too scared to reach out to me, you can always contact us through our website. So have at it. I expect dozens of emails when this webinar ends.
Perfect. Thank you. Michael, go ahead.
Oh man, now I have to plug my own email address too. Way to go.
Twitter handle,
right.
Instagram, it's all good. Whatever.
I'm totally fine with an email address. It's michael.davis@shiftparadigm.com. Please, by all means, email me. Love to talk to people. Or you can go to our website, of course, shiftparadigm.com. I think when you think about kind of use cases, very practically, people are trying to do more with less. They're trying to use their data more effectively. They're trying to figure out how their current initiatives are actually performing. And there's a lot of questions in there, and a lot of it has to do with how well do you collect data? How do you segment your customers? What kind of processes do you use? What kind of technology do you have to help kind of aggregate a lot of that? And of course, our services run the gamut there a little bit to try to help triangulate what is really the problem and where can we focus our efforts. I think a lot of companies are coming to us with that. We've got to do a better job of investing our capital. We've got to understand what's performing. How do we build, more sophisticated attribution modeling? How do we build technology that's going to scale? And so really kind of helping organizations like start with some of those foundational pieces that do scale longer term. You start thinking about cloud implementation of data structure and management, and then creating a way for applications to be added and subtracted from the ecosystem in a fairly flexible way, because that just naturally happens. Some of those things are where we're seeing a lot of immediate traction, because we're really being able to pull the data together and see what's true. Like what's really happening, what's really there in the data, that first dashboard is super ugly. How fast can we get to that first dashboard, get that data together and start thinking about making decisions with it? And how do we clean it up and how do we improve things? So those are really the areas we're seeing a lot of need and a lot of kind of traction in the market right now, especially as we're all kind of facing uncertain times in front of us. Like how do we have a better understanding of what's actually happening in our teams?
No, perfect. Eric, last minute is yours, sir.
Okay, so first name dot last name, and Eric is with an A, ARIC.Zion at zionandzion.com. Okay, so focusing on, if I were you, why would I call me, and when would I call me or someone in our firm? So two things. yes, a lot of firms can help with CDP implementation. We can, a lot of others can. The two things I would say that make us very different, and it depends as a client, like, does your brain work this way? Does it align with what I'm saying? And some people are saying, no, it doesn't. So one is, when implementing a CDP, we find that a lot of the hurdles are not implementing the CDP and creating the connectors. They are having a digital media person that, let's say, doesn't understand how the CDP and digital media platforms connect. So therefore, they spend 30 hours trying to debug this when they could use one of our CDP trained digital media experts in order to cross that, jump back and forth over that gap for them and get done for them something in an hour that might take them 30 to troubleshoot. Okay, so it's understanding applications that a CDP ties into extremely well. And then it would be the fact that we really think in terms of elevating a client's maturity over time. And we're all familiar with those maturity curves. What level, 1 to 5 are you? What are all the bullets under each level? Too many words to read make you dizzy. We see maturity as boiling down to 3 things. 1, what gaps do you have in your organization? Like, we don't have people that can do the following things, and they are part of an optimized holistic solution. So do you have those gaps? We can help fill them. 2, whether or not you have a gap somewhere, what is the expertise depth in each area? Does that need augmentation, training, elevation? Do you need us to come in and say, we've been doing that for 5 years. You've been doing that for 5 months. Let us help you, and then you can run. Yeah. And 3, how do you optimize across all these things to, again, achieve that true definition of strategy, how you're different from your competitors? Okay.
Eric, well said. No, panelists, thank you so much. You're valuable. Thanks as always for the partnership. Ian, Eric, Michael, thanks for dedicating part of your time to come speak to our audience today. We're proud to be partners with each and every one of you, and we'll look forward to seeing you out there.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Perfect.